The first sign was a song. Admiral Vreth Kossel heard it on a routine surveillance sweep of Sector 9, a backwater cluster of occupied human worlds that hadn't produced a single incident in 38 years. He almost dismissed it. Almost. It was just a child's voice, humming something tuneless over a public frequency. A lullaby, maybe. Nothing in the galactic database flagged it. No encoded messages. No subsonic triggers. Just a kid singing to no one in particular. But then the song stopped. And in the silence that followed, every single human-built structure on the planet below went dark at the same instant. Not a power failure. Not a cascade malfunction. A choice. 9 billion people turned off their lights at the same second, as if they had all been waiting for the same cue. Vreth stared at his screen. The planet hung there, black as a closed eye. "Get me the council," he said. His voice came out thinner than he wanted. He did not know yet that the same darkness was spreading across 900 worlds. He did not know that the song he heard was the last lullaby a generation of children had been taught before bed every night, for 38 years. He did not know the words, translated from old Earth languages, meant roughly, "Sleep now. Tomorrow we remember." The Galactic Council was about to learn what remembering looked like. 40 years earlier, the Council had won. That was the word they used. Won. As if the war against humanity had been a contest between equals. It had not been. The Council commanded 11 species, 4,000 warships, and weapons that could crack a continent like an egg. Humanity had 1 species, 300 ships, and a stubborn streak that the Council's strategic algorithms had failed to quantify. The war lasted 11 months. The Council lost 40 ships. Humanity lost everything else. Every military installation. Every orbital defense grid. Every general, every colonel, every sergeant who had ever worn a uniform. The Council did not accept surrenders. They did not take prisoners of rank. They erased the chain of command down to the last corporal, then turned their guns on the shipyards, the academies, the factories. When the last human frigate broke apart over the skies of New Thessaly, the Council broadcast a single message to every occupied world. You are pacified. You will remain pacified. This is not negotiation. Then they installed governors. Brought in their own administrators, their own police, their own rules. Humans could farm. Humans could trade in small goods. Humans could raise children and grow old and die quietly. Anything beyond that required a permit. Anything beyond a permit required a license. Anything beyond a license was met with orbital bombardment. For the first 5 years, there were uprisings. Small ones. Desperate ones. Farmers with hunting rifles against armored hover tanks. Teachers throwing rocks at patrol drones. Every single one was crushed within the hour, and the punishment was always the same: public execution, broadcast to every screen on the planet. After 5 years, the uprising stopped. The Council recorded this in their archives as successful pacification. The human spirit broken. The species domesticated. Case closed. File sealed. Move on to the next administrative quarter. They were wrong. What the Council did not understand, what their algorithms could not model and their xenoanthropologists could not parse, was that humans did not need armies to remember. They needed stories. In the occupied cities, in the farming villages, in the cramped apartment blocks where Council surveillance cameras watched the streets but could not watch the inside of a mother's whisper, The remembering began. It started with the old ones. The survivors. The retired mechanics who had once serviced fighter engines. The former logistics clerks who had once tracked ammunition shipments. The nurses who had stitched wounds in field hospitals. They were too old to fight. Too old to matter, the council decided, and left them alone. That was the first mistake. They gathered in back rooms. In cellars. In the noise of busy markets where listening devices couldn't isolate a single voice. And they talked. Not about rebellion. Not yet. About details. Where the old bunkers were. Which asteroids had hollow cores. What frequency the Council's patrol ships used for identification, and how that frequency could be mimicked with a modified mining laser. Which Council officers drank too much and talked too freely in the bars near the spaceports. The young ones listened. They were 6, 7, 8 years old. They sat on their grandparents' laps and heard these things as bedtime stories. Once upon a time, there was a shipyard hidden inside the Kellen Belt, and the entrance was behind the third asteroid that looked like a broken tooth. The children laughed. They asked for the story again the next night. And the next. By the time those children were 20, the stories had calcified into knowledge. By 30, into purpose. By 38, into a plan so vast and so quiet that no surveillance network in the galaxy could detect it, because it lived nowhere on a screen. It lived in memory. In song. In the particular way a mother hummed a tune while kneading bread, and the rhythm of the humming encoded the rotation schedule of the Council garrison overhead. No data to hack. No signal to intercept. No meeting to raid. Just 9 billion people, carrying the same secret in their skulls, waiting for the child's song to stop. Governor Thesic had administered the human world of Cairo for 12 years. He considered himself a fair ruler. He allowed festivals. He allowed music in the parks. He even permitted humans to build small boats and sail them on the inland seas, because his psychological advisors said that open water reduced aggression in bipedal primates. On the morning of what the humans would later call Reclamation Day, Thesic was eating breakfast in his spire overlooking the capital city. His aide, a young Vrelian named Mosh, brought him the daily intelligence summary. Nothing to report, Governor. Sector quiet. No unauthorized gatherings. No unusual communications traffic. Thesic spread marmalade on his toast. Good. The humans have finally learned their place. He said this with genuine satisfaction. He liked Cairo. He liked the humans. They were quiet, industrious, polite. They fixed his plumbing without being asked. They smiled when he walked through the market. They called him sir and meant it, or seemed to. At 0900 hours, his security chief buzzed the intercom. Governor. The humans are outside. Outside what? Outside everything, sir. They're in the streets. All of them. Just standing. Thesic walked to the window. Below, the capital stretched in every direction, and in every street, every alley, every open square, humans stood still. Not marching. Not chanting. Not carrying signs or weapons. Just standing, looking up. Looking at his window. Millions of faces. Silent. Patient. Disperse them, Thesic said. Standard protocol. Warning first, then sonic deterrence. Sir, there are no crowds to disperse. They're not blocking anything. They're not breaking any law. They're just standing. Thesic felt something cold move through his chest. He had governed humans for 12 years. He had never seen them do anything without a reason. "Get me the garrison commander," he said. The garrison commander did not answer. His channel was dead. Every council military channel on Cairo was dead. Then the lights went out. Across 900 worlds, the pattern was identical. The humans did not attack the council garrisons. Not at first. They simply removed the infrastructure. Power grids went dark. Water treatment plants stopped. Communication relays shut down. Transport networks froze. Every system that the council depended on to project force, to call for reinforcements, to even know what was happening, was switched off by the people who had spent 4 decades maintaining those systems. The humans had been the plumbers, the electricians, the janitors, the mechanics, the code writers, the cooks in the garrison mess halls, the clerks in the logistics offices. The council had looked right through them for 38 years, seeing only labor, only function, only hands. They had never considered that those hands knew where every wire ran. Every pipe, every bolt, every access code typed carelessly while a human janitor mopped the floor 3 meters away and watched. On Cairo, Governor Thesic found himself locked in his own spire. The doors would not open. The lifts did not run. His personal communicator was dead. His emergency beacon was dead. The windows, reinforced against bombardment, would not break. He was sealed in a glass box 200 meters above a city that had stopped pretending he existed. On the world of Kethera, the Council's regional fleet commander walked out to his hangar to board his flagship and found it gone. Not destroyed. Gone. The humans who serviced the docking clamps had released them at 0859, and the ships had drifted silently into the dark, where human pilots, trained in secret on stolen simulators for 20 years, were waiting in modified cargo haulers to board them. On New Thessaly, where the last human frigate had died 40 years ago, the descendants of that crew's ground support teams opened a sealed cavern beneath the northern mountains and pulled out the components of 300 new ships, built piece by piece over 4 decades, each part small enough to hide in a lunch pail, assembled in cellars by people who had never seen a starship but had memorized the blueprints from their grandmothers' stories. The Council had destroyed humanity's military. They had never destroyed humanity's blueprint. High Chancellor Oriva Venn received the first reports at 0914. By 0930, she had received 900 of them. By 0945, she could not receive any more, because the communication network connecting the Council's core worlds to the occupied territories had been severed. Not damaged. Severed. Cleanly. Surgically. As if someone had simply unplugged the galaxy. She stood in the council chamber, surrounded by representatives of 11 species, and watched the holographic display update in fragments. Each fragment was the same image, a human world, going dark. Then, minutes later, lighting up again, but wrong. The lights were in different patterns. The frequencies were different. The flags were different. "They've taken Kethera Station," said the Vrelian delegate. His voice was flat. Shock flat. The entire station. 14,000 council personnel, detained. Not killed. Detained. Fed water, given medical checks, and locked in their quarters. "They're not killing anyone?" Oriva asked. "No. That's the part that frightens me." She understood. If the humans had slaughtered the garrisons, the council could rally. Could call it an atrocity. Could unite 11 species in righteous fury and glass the human worlds from orbit. But the humans weren't giving them that. They were being precise. Humane, even. Locking doors instead of breaking bodies. Cutting wires instead of cutting throats. It meant this was not a riot. Not a spasm of rage. This was a plan executed with a discipline that no species in the council had ever seen from a pacified population. It meant they had been thinking about this for 40 years. Oriva gripped the edge of the podium. Her hands were shaking. She was the most powerful individual in the known galaxy, and her hands were shaking. "Get me the fleet," she said. "All of it. Every ship. Every weapon. We end this now, before." Before what? Before they organized further? They were already organized. They had been organized before she was born. "The fleet is not responding," said her communications officer. "The human maintenance crews aboard the capital ships have sealed the engineering sections. The reactors are stable but locked. The ships can't move." Oriva stared. "How many ships?" "All of them, Chancellor. Every ship with a human mechanic aboard." "Which is, most of them." The chamber went silent. 11 species looked at each other across the circular room. For the first time in 400 years of galactic governance, the Galactic Council had no military. They had given the humans the mops. The humans had learned where the engines were. By noon, the occupation was over. Not everywhere at once, it rippled outward from the core-occupied worlds to the periphery, carried by pre-recorded messages that played on every screen, every speaker, every device the Council had installed to monitor their prisoners. The message was not a speech. It was not a declaration of war. It was a woman's voice, old and calm, speaking plain words. "This is Marin Solvik, daughter of General Edric Solvik, who died at New Thessaly 40 years ago. I am speaking on behalf of the Free Human Compact. As of this hour, all Council administrative and military personnel on human worlds are to remain in their current locations. You will not be harmed. You will be fed. You will be treated with dignity. You will be transported to the nearest Council border within 30 days. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We do not want revenge. We want you to leave. And we want you to remember, the next time you look at a species you have conquered, that quiet is not the same as broken. Silence is not the same as surrender. And a child's bedtime story can carry an army in it. Go home. Tell your council. We are here. We have always been here. And we will not be pacified again." The message ended. Across 900 worlds, the lights came back on. But they were human lights now. Warm. Yellow. The color of hearth fires and kitchen windows and things that were theirs. Chancellor Oriva then watched the message 3 times. Then she sat down heavily in her chair and pressed her palms against her eyes. Around her, the council chamber erupted. Delegates shouting. Demanding action. Demanding retaliation. Demanding someone explain how 11 species with 4,000 warships had been checkmated by janitors and storytellers. But Oriva wasn't listening to them. She was thinking about the phrase in the message. A child's bedtime story can carry an army in it. She thought about the reports. The lullabies. The songs hummed in markets. The old people gathering in cellars. The children sitting on laps, wide-eyed, hearing tales of hidden shipyards and secret frequencies and the exact number of bolts in a docking clamp. 38 years of it. 38 years of rehearsal disguised as folklore. The council had studied human history. They knew about humans' wars, their weapons, their tactics. They had prepared for all of it. They had not prepared for grandmothers. Oriva stood. The chamber fell quiet, waiting for her order. The retaliation order. The glassing order. The order that would restore the council's authority through fire and silence. She opened her mouth. And then the main display flickered. A new signal. Not from the occupied worlds. From beyond them. From the deep black, where the council's long-range sensors had detected nothing for decades. It was a fleet. Human-built. 300 ships, crude and angular and ugly, bearing no registry, no transponder codes, no identification. They were not in council space. They were in no one's space, parked in the void between stars, waiting. The signal attached to the fleet was text only. 4 words. We remember this too. The meaning was clear. The humans had not just freed their own worlds. They had built a navy in secret, hidden in the dark, and they were showing the council it existed. Not using it. Not threatening with it. Just showing it. The way a person might set a loaded gun on the table during a conversation and say nothing. The council could choose peace. The humans would allow it. The council could choose war. And the humans were ready for that, too. Had been ready for 40 years. Would be ready for 40 more if they had to be. Oriva closed her mouth. She looked at the 11 delegations. She looked at the fleet on the screen. She looked at her own trembling hands. No retaliation, she said quietly. Chancellor, the Vrelian delegate started. No retaliation. Her voice hardened. We are not fighting a species. We are fighting a memory. And you cannot kill a memory with a gun. She turned to her communications officer. Draft a withdrawal order. All personnel. All worlds. 30 days, as they specified. And add a line. What line, Chancellor? Oriva stared at the screen, at the 300 dark ships waiting in the void, patient as stone. Apologize, she said. Mean it or don't. But say it. On Cairo, Governor Thesic sat in his sealed spire, listening to the silence. His toast had gone cold. His marmalade had dried into a sticky amber film on the plate. The door opened at 1400. Not forced. Not blasted. Opened, calmly, by a human woman in a maintenance uniform. She was perhaps 60. Her hands were rough. She had been fixing pipes in this building for 22 years. Governor, she said. Not sir. Not with deference. Just his title, flat and neutral. You're free to go. Transport to the border is arranged. You have 30 days. Thesic looked at her. He had seen this woman every day for over a decade. She had fixed his sink last winter. He had tipped her. He had said thank you and meant it, or thought he meant it. Your name, he said. What is your name? Dara, she said. Dara. Did you know? All these years. Did you know this was coming? She considered the question. Tilted her head slightly, as if the answer required checking something deep and old inside herself. My grandmother told me a story, she said. About a hidden shipyard behind a broken-tooth asteroid. I was 4. I thought it was a fairy tale. She smiled. Small. Tired. Final. It wasn't a fairy tale, Governor. None of them were. She stepped aside. The corridor beyond was full of humans. Standing. Watching. Silent. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just present. Looking at him the way you look at something you are setting down after carrying it a very long time. Thesic walked out. He did not look back. Behind him, Dara pulled a small communicator from her pocket. She pressed one button. Spoke one word. Clear. Across 900 worlds, 9 billion people exhaled. And somewhere in the deep dark between the stars, 300 ships powered down their running lights, settled into their silent orbits, and waited. Not for war. Not for peace. Just for the next time someone forgot that quiet was not the same as empty. They would be waiting. They had always been waiting. The end.